Hey everyone. Before we begin, I need you to understand something. Winter isn't just cold. It's alive. And sometimes, what lives in the darkness between snowflakes is something we were never meant to see. These 4 stories come from people who survived encounters with things that hunt when the sun disappears and the temperature drops below freezing. If you enjoy this video, hit that like button and subscribe. We post real horror stories every day, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. I grew up in northern Alaska, where winter meant something different than it does for most people. I'm not talking about snow days or hot chocolate. I'm talking about the polar night, the period between November and January when the sun doesn't rise at all. Just darkness. Endless, suffocating darkness that presses against your windows and seeps into your bones. My name is David, and I was 17 when it happened. Our family lived about 15 miles outside of town in a cabin my grandfather built in the 60s. My parents, my younger sister Emma, who was 12, and me. We were used to the isolation. Dad worked from home as an accountant, and Mom homeschooled us. The darkness never bothered us before. It was just part of life. That changed in early December. The temperature had dropped to -40. The kind of cold that freezes your breath before it leaves your mouth, that makes the trees crack like gunshots in the night. We'd been inside for 3 days straight. The walls of our cabin felt closer every hour, the windows smaller, the darkness outside thicker somehow. Emma noticed it first. I was in the kitchen making coffee when she came downstairs. It was around 2 in the afternoon, but it looked like midnight outside. She walked past me without saying anything and pressed her face against the window above the sink. "There's someone out there," she said. I joined her at the window. Our motion sensor lights illuminated about 30 feet of snow-covered yard before the darkness swallowed everything. I didn't see anything. Where she pointed? Right at the edge. By the trees. They've been standing there for an hour. A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the temperature. "Why didn't you tell Mom and Dad?" I did. "They said it was just shadows." "But David, shadows don't move like that." I stared into the darkness beyond our lights. At first, nothing. Then I saw it. A figure, barely visible, standing just beyond the reach of the light. Tall. Too tall. It wasn't moving, just standing there in the brutal cold. "Stay here," I said. I found Dad in his office. He was skeptical at first, but he came to look. By the time we got back to the kitchen window, the figure was gone. Dad checked all the windows, looked out each one carefully. Nothing. "Probably just a moose," he said. "The darkness plays tricks on you. You know that." But Emma and I knew what we'd seen. And we both knew it wasn't a moose. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle and the wind howl. Around 3 in the morning, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Soft. Careful. I sat up, thinking it was Emma going to the bathroom. Then I heard my door handle turn. The door opened slowly. A figure stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the dim hallway light. For a moment I thought it was my sister, but the proportions were wrong. Too tall, the head tilted at an angle that made my stomach turn. "Emma," I whispered. The figure didn't respond. It just stood there, and I could feel it watching me even though I couldn't see its face. My hand fumbled for the lamp on my bedside table. When the light came on, the doorway was empty. I jumped out of bed and ran into the hallway. Emma's door was closed. My parents' door was closed. I was alone. But I could smell something. A sharp, bitter smell like ozone mixed with something organic and rotten. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. The next morning, I told my family what happened. Mom suggested it was a dream. Dad checked all the doors and windows. Everything was locked from the inside. Emma looked at me across the breakfast table and I could see it in her eyes. She believed me. It was the same thing from outside, she whispered when our parents weren't listening. Wasn't it? I nodded. Over the next week, things got worse. We'd hear scratching on the walls at night. Always on the outside, moving around the house like something was circling. The motion lights would trigger randomly, showing us empty snow. But sometimes, just at the edge of the light, we'd see it. That figure. Watching. Dad finally agreed to call the police after we found tracks in the snow. They were roughly human-shaped but wrong. The feet were too long, the stride too wide, and they were deep. Whatever made them was heavy. The tracks circled our house 3 times before disappearing into the woods. The police came out. 2 officers who knew my dad from town. They looked at the tracks, took some pictures, walked around the property. They didn't find anything useful. One of them suggested it might be a bear, even though bears should have been hibernating. The other one didn't offer any theories. He just looked uncomfortable and kept glancing at the tree line. "Lock your doors," was all he said before they left. "And keep your rifles loaded." That night, Emma disappeared. I woke up to my mother screaming. It was 4 in the morning. I ran to Emma's room. Her bed was empty. The window was open. Not broken. Just open. Snow had blown in, covering her bed and floor. The screen was gone. Dad grabbed his rifle and we went outside. The temperature was -50. I wore every piece of clothing I owned and I was still shaking within seconds. Our breath froze in the air. The motion lights showed us tracks leading from Emma's window into the woods. The same wrong tracks we'd seen before. But there was something else. Emma's tracks, small boot prints in the snow, walking beside the larger tracks. Not dragged. Walking. She went with it, I said. She walked out on her own. Dad didn't say anything. He just started following the tracks, rifle raised. I grabbed the shotgun from the house and followed him. Mom called the police and stayed behind. The tracks led deep into the woods. Our lights could barely penetrate the darkness between the trees. It felt alive, watching us. The cold was so intense I couldn't feel my face. Every breath hurt. We walked for 20 minutes before Dad stopped. Ahead of us, the trees opened into a small clearing. In the center stood Emma. She was in her pajamas, no coat, standing barefoot in the snow. She should have been dead from exposure. But she was just standing there, facing away from us. "Emma!" Dad shouted. She turned around slowly. Even from 30 feet away, I could see her eyes were wrong. Completely black, reflecting our flashlight beams like an animal's eyes. "Emma, come here." Dad moved forward. That's when I saw the other figures. They emerged from the trees around the clearing. 5 of them. Tall. Wrong. Their limbs too long, their movements too fluid. They didn't walk. They glided across the snow, leaving no tracks. Dad fired a warning shot into the air. The figures stopped. Emma tilted her head, and I heard her laugh. But it wasn't her laugh. It was too deep, too old. "She's ours now," Emma said in that wrong voice. She came willingly. She opened the window. She invited us in. "What are you?" I asked. The figures moved closer. In the beam of my flashlight, I finally saw one clearly. It looked almost human but stretched, like someone had pulled it lengthwise. Its skin was gray and covered in frost. Its face was smooth except for a mouthful of too many teeth. And its eyes, black and endless. "We are the dark season," Emma said. "We are what waits in the long night. We've been here since before your people came. Before the first humans saw these trees. We sleep in the summer light, but when the sun dies, we wake. And we're so very hungry." Dad raised his rifle. "Give me back my daughter." Emma smiled. "We'll give her back. When spring comes. If she lasts that long." The figures rushed forward. Dad fired. I fired. The shotgun blast hit one of them center mass and it didn't even slow down. They moved impossibly fast. Dad screamed for me to run, but I couldn't move. I was frozen, watching these things close the distance. Then the clearing filled with light. Blinding, white light. The figures shrieked, a sound that made my ears ring and my teeth ache. They scattered, melting back into the trees. Emma collapsed in the snow. I looked up. A helicopter. Search and rescue, called by Mom. Their spotlight swept across the clearing. Dad and I ran to Emma. She was unconscious and frozen, her skin blue. But her eyes were back to normal. The helicopter landed. They got us all inside and flew us back. Emma spent a week in the hospital with severe frostbite. She lost 3 toes. She doesn't remember anything after going to bed that night. The doctors say it was a fugue state caused by stress and isolation. That she walked out on her own while sleepwalking and we hallucinated the rest because of the cold and darkness. But I know what I saw. And I know Emma knows more than she's saying. Sometimes I catch her staring out windows at night. Watching. Waiting. We moved to a city after that. Lights everywhere, even in winter, there's light. But sometimes, in the deepest part of winter when the darkness comes early and stays late, I see them, standing just beyond the street lights, watching our house, waiting for the invitation they need. Emma keeps her window locked now. We all do. But I know it's only a matter of time. Because sometimes, late at night, I hear her sleepwalking to her window. I hear the lock clicking open, and I have to run to her room and close it before she can push the window up. She never remembers in the morning. The doctors prescribed sleeping pills. They help. But one day the medication will fail. One day I won't wake up in time. And when that happens, when Emma opens that window and invites them in again, I don't think we'll be lucky enough to see another spring. Because I've learned something about the long dark. It's patient. It's hungry. And it always gets what it's been promised. My name is Dr. Sarah Chun, and I was part of a research team stationed at a remote facility in Antarctica. If you're not familiar, it's a cutting-edge base built on a floating ice shelf, designed to study climate change, atmospheric conditions, and cosmic radiation. In the summer, we'd have about 50 people. In winter, just 15 souls remained, isolated in the most hostile environment on Earth. I was the medical officer and secondary biologist. This was my second winter at the station. I knew what to expect. 6 months of darkness, temperatures dropping to -50°C with wind chill making it feel like -70. Complete isolation. No flights in or out from March to November. Whatever happened at the station, we were on our own. The team was good. Experienced people who understood the psychological toll of Antarctic winter. We had routines, social activities, strict sleep schedules. Everything designed to prevent winter over syndrome, that particular kind of madness that comes from endless darkness and isolation. Everything was fine until August. It started with the sounds. Marcus, our radio operator, mentioned it first during breakfast. We ate together every morning at 8, one of our rituals to maintain normalcy. Anyone else here screaming last night? He asked. The table went quiet. Our station commander, James Sullivan, set down his coffee. What kind of screaming? Human. Or at least, I thought it was human. Around 3 in the morning. It was distant, but clear enough to wake me up. Wind, James said. Gets loud enough, it can sound like anything. This wasn't wind, Marcus insisted. I've been here 3 winters. I know what wind sounds like. But he was the only one who'd heard it, and we moved on. Antarctica is full of strange sounds. The ice shelf groans and cracks. The wind howls through our equipment. Your mind plays tricks. We all knew that. The next night, 3 more people heard it, including me. I was working late in the medical bay, updating records, when I heard it. A scream, high-pitched and desperate, carrying across the ice despite the thick walls of our station. It sounded like someone in agony. I ran to the window, but outside was just darkness and blowing snow. Our external lights illuminated about 20 meters before the white and black swallowed everything. I radioed James immediately. He gathered the team. 5 of us had heard it. We suited up, took powerful lights and radios, and went outside to search. The cold hit like a physical blow. Even with all our gear, you could feel it trying to kill you. We searched the immediate area around the station. Nothing. No tracks in the snow except our own. No sign anyone had been out there. Could it be from another station? Someone asked. The nearest station was over 300 kilometers away. Impossible. We went back inside. James logged it as acoustic anomaly, possibly related to ice movement. But I could see the concern in his eyes. We all heard the same thing. A human scream. Real and terrified. The screaming came every night after that. Always between midnight and 4 in the morning. Always from outside. And every night, it got closer. By the end of the week, we could hear it clearly from inside the station. Multiple voices now, screaming in unison. They didn't sound quite right. The pitch was off. The rhythm wrong. Like something trying to imitate human screaming without understanding how human vocal cords worked. We need to report this, I told James. Report what strange sounds. Command will think we're going mad. Maybe we are, Marcus said. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes. Maybe we're all having a shared psychotic episode. That night, the screaming was right outside our walls. So close it sounded like whoever was making the noise had their mouth pressed against the metal exterior. We all gathered in the common room, listening to those horrible sounds circle our station. Then they stopped. Complete silence. We waited. 5 minutes. 10. Nothing. James stood up. I'm going to check that the lights went out. All of them. Emergency lights, hallway lights, everything. We were plunged into absolute darkness. The kind of dark you only get in Antarctica in winter. So complete you can't see your hand in front of your face. Someone screamed. Not outside. Inside. With us. Flashlights came on, beams cutting through the dark. We counted heads. Everyone was there. 15 people, all accounted for. But we'd all heard it. A scream. From inside our circle. Generator, James said, voice shaking. Check the generator. Our electrician, Tom, ran to check the systems. The rest of us stayed in the common room, flashlights pointed in all directions. I could hear my heart pounding. Feel the panic rising. The lights came back on. Tom returned looking pale. Generator's fine. Everything's fine. I don't know why the lights went out. That was the first night one of us disappeared. Her name was Dr. Yuki Tanaka, our atmospheric scientist. She'd been sitting right next to me when the lights went out. I'd felt her there. When the lights came back, her chair was empty. We searched the entire station. Every room, every closet, every crawl space. We radioed her. Nothing. It was like she'd vanished into thin air. But that's not the worst part. We found her clothes. All of them. Folded neatly in a pile outside the airlock door. Her thermal underwear, her fleece layers, her parka, her
boots.
Everything. Stacked like she'd carefully removed each piece. James stared at that pile of clothes for a long time. She went outside, he finally said. Without any gear. In negative 60-degree weather. That's suicide, I said. She'd be dead in minutes. Then where's her body? We suited up and searched. The storm had picked up. Visibility was near zero, but we had to try. We found tracks, barefoot tracks in the snow, leading away from the station. Human tracks. We followed them for maybe 50 meters before they just stopped. In the middle of flat ice. No body. No blood. Just tracks that ended. We went back inside. James tried to radio command, but our communications were down. Not broken. Just not working. Every system checked out fine, but we couldn't send or receive anything. We're trapped, Marcus said. Completely cut off. The screaming started again that night. Louder than before. And this time, I recognized one of the voices. It was Yuki. Screaming outside in the darkness. Screaming like she was being torn apart. But when I looked out the window, I saw her. She was standing naked in the snow, about 10 meters from the station. Her skin had turned blue-gray. Her mouth was open in a scream I could hear through the walls. But she wasn't moving. Just standing there. Frozen. Screaming. Don't look, James said, pulling me away from the window. Don't look at them. Then he pointed to another window. There were more. 3 figures I didn't recognize, all naked, all frozen, all screaming. They stood in a circle around our station. What are they? I asked. I don't know. But they're not human anymore. We covered all the windows with blackout curtains. But we could still hear them. That horrible screaming that went on for hours. Some of the team started breaking down. Dr. Robert Hayes locked himself in his room. We could hear him praying. Crying. Another researcher, Jennifer Park, wouldn't stop talking about how we were being punished for invading this place. The second disappearance happened 2 nights later. This time it was Marcus. We'd instituted a buddy system. No one went anywhere alone. But when his roommate woke up, Marcus was gone. And his clothes were in that same neat pile outside the airlock. We found him with the others. 5 frozen figures now, standing around our station. All screaming. Their mouths open impossibly wide. Eyes completely white. Skin frosted over. They're still alive, Tom said, horrified. Look at them. They're still alive. He was right. I could see their chests moving. Slow, shallow breaths. They were breathing, standing naked in -60-degree weather, screaming. Still alive. That's when I understood. This wasn't cold killing them. Something else was happening. Something was taking them, preserving them in the ice, keeping them alive, screaming. We need to bring them inside, I said. We need to know. James grabbed my arm. Whatever they are now, they're not our people anymore. We bring them in, we all die. He was right. I knew he was right. But hearing Yuki's screams every night was destroying me. The disappearances continued. One person every few days. Always the same. Clothes in a pile. Barefoot tracks ending in nothing. And then they'd appear with the others, forming a growing circle of frozen, screaming figures around our station. We tried to fight it. We stayed awake in shifts. We tied ourselves together. Nothing worked. When it wanted someone, they'd simply vanish, like something reached into our reality and plucked them out. By October, there were only 4 of us left. James, Tom, Jennifer, and me. 11 frozen people stood outside, surrounding us. Their screams had synchronized. A chorus of agony that never ended. It's the darkness, Jennifer said. She'd stopped sleeping entirely. Her eyes were wild. The darkness here isn't like darkness anywhere else. It's old. Hungry. It's been here since before the sun. And it wants us back. That's crazy, Tom said. Is it? We're in the most isolated place on Earth. In the longest night. We're in its domain now. And it's collecting us. That night, Tom disappeared. Then Jennifer. It was just James and me, and we both knew we didn't have long. We should go outside, I said. Face whatever this is. No, James said. We wait. 2 more weeks and the sun comes back. If we can last 2 more weeks. He was gone before he finished the sentence. Between one blink and the next, his clothes appeared outside seconds later. I was alone. I covered every mirror in the station. I stayed in the common room with all the lights on. I could hear 14 voices screaming outside now. Sometimes they said my name, called to me, begged me to join them. I lasted 5 days alone before I couldn't take it anymore. I put on my parka, not because I thought it would help, but because it felt wrong to go out naked. I opened the airlock door. They were there. All of them. Standing in their circle. Screaming. I walked toward them, and they parted, opening the circle. In the center was something else. A darkness deeper than the surrounding night. A void that pulled at me. I wanted to run. But I couldn't. I walked forward. Into the dark. And it was so cold. Colder than anything. Cold that burned. Cold that froze not just my body but something deeper. My thoughts. Myself. I opened my mouth to scream and couldn't stop. I don't know how long I stood there. Days. Weeks. Screaming. Frozen. Aware. Trapped in ice and agony and darkness. Time meant nothing. Then the sun came back. The first light in 6 months. It touched my frozen skin and the spell broke. I could move. I collapsed in the snow. The others collapsed around me. We were all naked, frostbitten, half dead. But alive. The spring team found us scattered around the station. They rushed us to medical facilities. Frostbite. Severe malnutrition. Psychological trauma. But alive. All 15 of us. Somehow alive. We couldn't explain what happened. Our memories were fragmented. The official report called it shared psychotic disorder caused by isolation. They shut down the station permanently. Too dangerous. Too isolated. But I remember. I remember the darkness. And I know it's still there. Waiting. Hungry. Patient. And every winter, when the darkness gets long enough, I hear it. In the wind. In the silence. That screaming. Calling me back. One day, I think I'll answer. My name is Jack Morrison, and I spent 5 years as a forest ranger in the wilderness of Montana. If you know anything about Montana winters, you know they're brutal. Temperatures hitting -30, snow measured in feet not inches, and thousands of square miles of wilderness where no one goes for months. Most rangers transfer out before experiencing more than 2 winters. The isolation breaks people. But I loved it. The silence. The vast white emptiness. The feeling of being the only human for miles. It felt pure. That changed when I found the door. It was late February in my 5th winter. I was doing a routine check of some of the remote trails when my snowmobile broke down about 15 miles from the nearest access road. The engine just died. I tried everything I could think of, but it wasn't starting. I radioed dispatch, but the response was crackling and broken. The weather was turning bad. Blowing snow. Visibility dropping fast. I had 2 choices. Wait with the snowmobile and hope dispatch got my message, or start hiking toward a service cabin I knew was about 3 miles northeast. The temperature was dropping fast. I chose to hike. The cabin was one of those old fire watch stations from the 70s, barely maintained but still standing. It would have heat and supplies. I'd stayed there before. 3 miles in deep snow took me almost 2 hours. By the time I saw the cabin, I was exhausted and starting to lose feeling in my fingers despite my gloves. But something was wrong. The cabin wasn't alone anymore. About 40 meters past the cabin, deeper in the trees, stood a concrete structure I'd never seen before. It was maybe 30 feet square, flat-roofed, partially buried in snow. It looked like a bunker or some kind of utility building. But I'd been to this cabin a dozen times. This structure had never been here. I know how stupid that sounds. Buildings don't appear out of nowhere. But I'm telling you, I'd hiked past that exact spot last month. Nothing there but trees and snow. The structure looked military. The concrete was weathered but solid. No windows. Just one feature. A heavy metal door. Painted red. Set into the north-facing wall. I should have just gone into the cabin. But something about that door drew me. Maybe it was the isolation. Maybe it was curiosity. I walked over to it. The door had no handle. No lock. Just a smooth metal surface painted bright red that stood out against the gray concrete and white snow. I pushed on it. Nothing. It didn't budge. I examined the frame but couldn't see any way to open it. That's when I noticed the ice. The door frame was frozen solid. Not just snow. Clear ice, thick and solid, sealing the entire perimeter of the door. Like someone had poured water around it and let it freeze. Multiple layers. Years worth maybe. I found text stenciled above the door. Faded but readable. Authorized personnel only. And below that, do not open. And below that, November 1986. Almost 40 years ago. What was this? Some Cold War relic? Montana had its share of military installations, but none in this area that I knew of. I went back to the cabin. got a fire going, and tried the radio again. Still nothing but static. The storm had settled in. I wasn't going anywhere until morning. I tried to sleep, but I kept thinking about that door, about the ice sealing it, about what might be inside. Around midnight, I heard something, a deep vibration. Not quite a sound, more like a pressure I felt in my chest. It came from the direction of the bunker. I looked out the cabin window. The bunker was dark against the snow, but I swear I saw the red door illuminated somehow, like it was glowing. Then the vibration stopped, and the glow faded. I told myself it was exhaustion, the cold, my imagination. I went back to bed. The next morning, the storm had passed. My radio still wasn't working right, but I got through enough to let dispatch know where I was. They'd send someone with a replacement part for my snowmobile, but it would take until afternoon. I decided to investigate the bunker more carefully. In daylight, it looked even more strange. The concrete was too smooth, too well maintained for something abandoned. And there were no tracks in the snow around it except mine from last night. No animal tracks, nothing. I walked around the entire structure. The door was the only entrance. No vents. No pipes. Nothing except solid concrete walls and that one sealed door. I went back to the cabin and found a hammer and chisel in the maintenance supplies. I know I should have left it alone, but I couldn't. I needed to know what was inside. Why it was sealed. Why it appeared where nothing had been before. It took me an hour to chip away enough ice to expose the door frame properly. The ice was thick, hard, and the deeper I went, the colder it got. Not ambient cold. The ice itself seemed to be generating cold, which didn't make sense. Finally, I cleared enough ice to see that the door wasn't locked. It was just frozen shut. I used the hammer to break away the last of the ice seal. Then I put my weight against the door and pushed. It opened. The smell hit me first. Stale air. Chemical smell like formaldehyde. And something else. Something organic and wrong. The interior was completely dark. My flashlight beam showed a concrete corridor leading down at a gentle slope. The walls were covered in frost. I should have closed that door and walked away. But I didn't. I stepped inside. The temperature dropped immediately. My breath frosted in thick clouds. The corridor ran for maybe 30 feet before opening into a larger space. My light barely penetrated the darkness, but I could see it was a room. Maybe 40 feet across. Empty except for something in the center. I walked closer. It was a chair. Heavy duty. Metal. With restraints on the arms and legs. Dark stains covered the seat and floor around it. Blood. Old blood on the wall behind the chair. Someone had painted words in large letters. Keep it frozen. Below that, below 0 at all times. And below that, God help us if it thaws. My light swept the room and I saw more. Equipment. Monitoring devices. All old. 70s era technology. And cameras. Multiple cameras mounted on the walls, all pointed at the chair. "What is this place?" I whispered. That's when I heard it. A crack. Sharp and clear. I spun around. The sound came from deeper in the facility. There was another corridor I hadn't seen. Another door. This one wasn't sealed. I walked toward it. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, but I couldn't. The door was ajar. I pushed it open. The room beyond was a cell. Concrete walls. No windows. No furniture. And ice. So much ice. It covered every surface in thick layers. The temperature in this room was far below zero. My flashlight beam showed me why. There was a body in the ice. A person. Frozen into the wall. I could see them through the layers of frost. A man. Maybe 40 years old. His mouth was open. His eyes wide. His hands raised like he'd been trying to push through the ice. But his skin was wrong. Gray. Cracked. And his eyes. Even through the ice I could see his eyes were completely black. I stepped closer. That was my mistake. The body moved. Just a twitch. His fingers flexing inside the ice. Then his eyes shifted. Focused on me. And his mouth moved. I couldn't hear anything through the ice, but I could read his lips. "Thank you," he mouthed. "Thank you for opening the door." The ice around him cracked. A sound like gunshots in the silent room. I stumbled backward as more cracks appeared, spreading across the wall. I ran. Back through the cell door. Through the room with the chair. Up the corridor. I could hear the ice breaking behind me. Shattering. And something else. Footsteps. Heavy. Uneven. Following me. I burst out into the snow and ran for the cabin. I could hear it behind me. Close. I didn't look back. I slammed the cabin door and locked it. Useless against what was coming, but I did it anyway. The sound stopped. Silence. I looked out the window. The thing stood in front of the bunker door. It had been a man once. But now it was something else. Its skin was that gray color, cracked and peeling. Its movements were wrong. Jerky. Like it was learning to walk again. And its eyes. Black. Reflecting my flashlight like an animal's. It stood there for maybe 10 seconds. Then it turned and walked back into the bunker. The red door swung closed behind it. I stayed in that cabin until help arrived 6 hours later. I told them everything. They thought I was suffering from hypothermia. Hallucinations. They checked the area. The bunker was still there, but they couldn't open the door. It had frozen shut again. The authorities called in some kind of federal team. They sealed off the area. Wouldn't tell me anything. A week later, they announced the entire sector was closed permanently due to environmental hazards. Anyone caught in the area would be prosecuted. I quit my job that spring. Moved to a city. Tried to forget. But I can't. Because I've done research. I've found records. In November 1986, there was an incident at an undisclosed facility in northwest Montana. 7 people died. The official report said it was a training accident. But there were rumors. Experiments. Something about extreme cold preservation. About trying to freeze certain conditions. Certain infections. The report said the facility was sealed and buried. That whatever was inside couldn't survive. That as long as it stayed frozen, it couldn't spread. But I opened the door. I let warm air inside. And I saw that thing wake up. Sometimes I dream about it. Walking out of that bunker. Learning to move properly. Getting stronger. Warmer. The ice melting. And I wonder what happens when it gets warm enough. What happens when it remembers what it was. What it can do. Last week, there were reports of missing hikers in that area. 3 people. Vanished without a trace. The authorities say it's the terrain, the weather. But I know better. It's out there now, free, and it's hungry. I opened that door. I let it out. And every person who goes missing in those mountains now is my fault. But here's what really keeps me awake at night. Before I ran from that cell, I saw something else. Other cells, other doors, all frozen shut. And I wondered how many more are in there. How many more are waiting in the ice? Because if one of them got out, what happens when the others thaw? What happens when they all wake up? My name is Thomas Reed, and this happened 3 years ago in the wilderness. I was 26, working a dead-end job in the city, and needed to clear my head. My buddy Jake suggested a winter camping trip. Just us and another friend, Mike. 3 guys, a week in the wilderness, minimal gear. Back to basics. Jake had found this spot on some obscure camping forum. A valley about 40 kilometers from the nearest road, accessible only by snowshoe. No trails, no other campers. Total isolation. Perfect for what we needed. We packed light. 3-season tent. Sleeping bags rated to -20. A week's worth of freeze-dried food. Standard winter camping gear. We left on a Friday morning in late January, when the temperature was holding steady around -15. The hike-in took us most of the day. The valley was beautiful. Steep mountains on 3 sides, dense pine forest, a frozen creek running through the middle. We set up camp near the tree line where we'd have some wind protection but still get morning sun. That first night was perfect. Clear sky. Million stars. We made a fire, cooked dinner, told stupid stories. Around midnight, we turned in. I fell asleep listening to the wind in the trees. I woke up to Jake shaking me. It was still dark. He had his headlamp on, and his face was pale. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. I listened. At first, just wind. Then I heard it. A scream. Distant but clear. High-pitched. Human. Coming from the 03:21 direction of the mountains. Mike woke up. What the hell was that? We listened. The scream came again. Closer now. Then silence. Probably an animal, Jake said, but he didn't sound convinced. Mountain lion or something. That wasn't a mountain lion, I said. That was human. We stayed quiet, listening. 5 minutes. 10. Nothing else. Eventually, we convinced ourselves it was wildlife and went back to sleep. But I kept my knife close. The next morning, everything seemed fine. We made breakfast, broke down the camp, and decided to explore deeper into the valley. The weather was holding. Temperature around -10. Perfect winter camping conditions. We hiked for about 3 hours, following the frozen creek upstream. The valley narrowed. The mountains on either side got steeper, more claustrophobic. Around noon, we stopped for lunch in a clearing. That's when Jake found the first marker. It was a cairn. Stones stacked about 4 feet high. But the top stone was different. Painted red. And there was something carved into it. A symbol. 3 wavy lines intersecting. "What is that?" Mike asked. Jake pulled out his phone. No signal, but he had downloaded maps. Not on any map. Not marked as a trail marker or survey point. Maybe it's old, I suggested. Trappers or something. We kept hiking. An hour later, we found another cairn. Same red stone on top. Same symbol. This time there was something else. A piece of cloth tied to a nearby tree. Faded orange. The kind used for flagging tape. But old. Years old. Someone doesn't want people coming this way, Mike said. Or they're marking something, Jake said. A route maybe. We should have turned back. But we didn't. We followed the markers deeper into the valley. By mid-afternoon, we'd found 6 more cairns. They formed a path that led us to the face of the northern mountain. The valley ended here in a steep rock face. No way forward. But there was a cave. A natural opening in the rock, maybe 8 feet high and 6 feet wide. The final cairn sat right in front of the cave entrance. This one was different. Bigger. Maybe 6 feet tall. And the top wasn't just painted red. It was covered in it. Like someone had dumped paint over the entire upper half. We should check it out, Jake said, looking at the cave. Bad idea, Mike said. It's getting late. We should head back to camp. But Jake was already walking toward the cave entrance. I followed him. Mike reluctantly came too. The cave was shallow. It went back maybe 20 feet before narrowing to a crack. Nothing special. No animal signs. No ancient paintings. Just rock. Except for the smell. There was a smell coming from deeper in. Sweet. Rotten. Like meat left in the sun. In the cold, it should have been faint. But it was strong. Something died in there, I said. Jake shined his headlamp into the crack at the back. The beam didn't penetrate far. Probably just a bear. They den in caves like this. We left, hiked back to our camp as the sun set. The temperature dropped fast. By the time we got our fire going, it was -20 and falling. That night, the screaming started again. This time it was different. 3 screams. One from the direction of the cave. One from the east. One from the west. All at the same time. All the same pitch. All human. We sat around the fire, listening. The screams came in patterns. 3 screams. Silence for exactly 2 minutes. Then 3 more screams. Over and over. That's not animals, Mike said. His voice was shaking. That's people. 3 people screaming. There's no one else out here, Jake said. We hiked 40 kilometers. We didn't see anyone. But we all knew what we were hearing. Human voices. Screaming in the darkness. Surrounding our camp. The pattern continued for 2 hours. Then it stopped. Complete silence. We sat there until dawn, feeding the fire, not talking. When the sun came up, we decided to pack up and leave. That's when we found Jake's boots were gone. He'd left them outside the tent to dry. They were gone. Not scattered. Not dragged off by an animal. Just gone. And in their place was a marker. A stone. Painted red. With that same symbol carved into it. We need to leave now, Mike said. Right now. But Jake couldn't hike 40 kilometers in -20 weather without boots. We had to find them. Or make something. We spent 2 hours fashioning wraps for his feet using spare clothes and duct tape. It would have to do. We started hiking out. Made it maybe 5 kilometers before Jake couldn't go on. His makeshift boots weren't working. His feet were getting frostbitten. "We have to go back to camp," I said. "We'll keep the fire going. Someone will come looking for us eventually." "No," Mike said. "We can't go back there." But we didn't have a choice. Jake couldn't walk. The temperature was dropping. We went back. That night, the screaming started earlier. Around 7. Still 3 sources. Still the same pattern. But closer now. Much closer. We could hear movement in the trees around our camp. Things circling us just beyond the firelight. "Show yourselves," Jake shouted into the darkness. "If you're people, show yourselves." The screaming stopped. For maybe 30 seconds. Then it started again. Louder. Closer. And this time, we heard words mixed in with the screams. "3 must answer." That's what it sounded like. 3 voices saying it in unison. "3 must answer. Answer what I shouted." The screaming stopped again. Then a different sound. Laughter. 3 sources laughing. But wrong. The pitch fluctuating. Sometimes human. Sometimes not. Mike stood up. His eyes were wide. Fixed on something beyond the fire. "Do you see them?" I looked. At first, nothing. Then I saw movement. 3 figures. Standing just beyond our light. Human-shaped. But wrong. Too tall. Too thin. Their heads tilted at angles that weren't possible. 3 came. One of them said. The voice was human but layered. Like multiple people speaking at once. 3 marked. 3 must answer. "What do you want?" Jake asked. The figures moved closer. Into the firelight. And I saw them clearly. They had been human once. Maybe recently. Maybe a long time ago. Their skin was gray-blue. Frostbitten. Their eyes were white. No pupils. No iris. Just white. Their mouths hung open, jaws dislocated, too wide. And they were naked. Standing in -30-degree weather. Not shivering. Not breathing frost. Just standing. "The valley demands tribute," they said. 3 stones mark the way. 3 screams call the chosen. 3 must answer. 3 must join. 3 must scream. One of them pointed at Jake. "You wore the mark. You entered the mouth. You are chosen." Jake screamed. Not from fear. His scream was involuntary. Like something pulled it out of him. And once he started, he couldn't stop. The 3 figures moved toward him. Mike and I tried to pull Jake back, but we couldn't move. We were frozen. Not from cold. From something else. Some force holding us in place. They took Jake. Dragged him away from the fire. Into the darkness. His screams faded. Then changed. The pitch shifted. Got higher. Joined with the other 3 screams in perfect harmony. Mike and I stood there frozen until dawn. When we could finally move, Jake was gone. His clothes were in a pile where he'd been sitting. Everything. Folded neatly. And on top was a stone. Painted red. With that symbol. We ran. Hiked out as fast as we could. Made it to the access road by nightfall. Got picked up by a ranger truck the next morning. We reported everything. They searched for Jake. Never found him. The official report says he died from exposure. wandered off in the night, succumbed to the cold. But Mike and I know better. Sometimes I still hear it. Jake's scream. When it's quiet. When it's cold. When winter comes. I hear him screaming with the others. 4 voices now instead of 3. Mike killed himself 6 months later. Jumped off a bridge. He left a note. Just 3 words. I hear them. I'm the only one left. The only one who knows what's in that valley. What hunts there. What demands tribute. And every winter, when the temperature drops and the darkness comes, I hear them calling. 4 screams. North. East. West. And one from the south now. Mike's scream. Calling me. Inviting me. Reminding me. 3 went in. 1 came out. But it's not over. Because I wore the mark too. I entered the mouth too. I was chosen too. I just haven't answered yet. But I will. One day, when it gets cold enough, dark enough, I'll hear them and I won't be able to resist. I'll walk into those mountains. Into that valley. Into that cave. And I'll scream. And I'll scream. And I'll scream forever.